Welcome to the Chad and Chong podcast. I'm Chad.
And I'm Chong.
And today we're going to talk about a really huge gig that Kevin just came back from. Wait, are we?
No, we're not. And
We're not.
we can't.
We can't.
Unfortunately, we can't.
And so this episode is about some of the legalities in the music industry.
I see what you did.
You see what I did?
I didn't even, that was a surprise, ladies and gentlemen. I didn't know he was going for that.
He thought we were going to do another retake. Huh? No, this is all live off the cuff. But yeah, what happens when you play a gig in the big leagues, right? You run into all of these things, legalities, I guess, the fine print. Let's talk about what we can't talk about. Kevin, thank you for showing up today. If you guys have been following the last two episodes, Kevin was absent.
Yeah.
I think this is the first time in Chad and Chong history we had Kevin Jimenez who filled in for you and guest hosted. So thank you so much, Kevin Jimenez. And then
Yes,
we
sir.
had my bro Eric Kern come on the podcast. Kevin, where have you been the last couple weeks?
I've been out, Chad. I've been out and about. I was in LA for a little bit, and then I went up north, and then I came back. I drove down the coast, beautiful drive. Got to visit Carmel and Big Sur, amazing. No one told me that 2.5 hours of that drive, you have no reception. So I was with my wife. She sang for about 10 minutes, sang herself to sleep.
Wow.
And then I was in just solitude by myself, driving down the coast, down the mountain. And it was very cloudy and very eerie. It was very, very cool, but it was fun nonetheless.
So 2 weeks, you weren't technically on vacation. You were on a gig, on a specific gig that lasted 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And you had to sign something that's called an NDA.
Which is a non-disclosure agreement.
Hey, look at that.
Oh.
Yay. What does NAM stand for?
National Association for Music Merchants.
Hey,
Let's
look
go.
at that.
I had to close my
Episode
eyes.
6 weeks later, he's got it. Yeah, but if you guys don't know, we live in a social media world, which everybody showcases what they can do now. You
Yeah.
know, drum videos take off really, really well. They do really well. People showing chops, this and that. With the advent of the GoPro and the iRig, now people can just use their phones and they're setting it up, whether they're gigging, in church or they're playing with the artist, whether they're on tour. And it seems like sometimes what you actually do maybe doesn't even matter, but showing it does. And, using social media as a platform has done a lot of great things for musicians everywhere. It's really a great marketing tool. It's a great networking tool. It's technically like a resume these days. But for a lot of the higher end gigs, you can't necessarily showcase that. So what is an NDA and what is its purpose, Kevin?
An NDA essentially is to protect the brand's identity, first and foremost, meaning if you're working for a company, an artist, they don't want anything getting out that doesn't rightly, I guess, is that even a word?
Yeah,
Rightly?
sure.
Maybe. Let's make it up. Represent them. So meaning, any photos, videos, audio of, whatever performance you might have done with them. If it doesn't look good, doesn't sound good, they don't want that getting out.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, you're protecting whatever entity that may have hired you or
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
On the sound side of things, having worked with a lot of films, both independent and with some bigger companies, I've always had to sign an NDA, and then there's a lot of reasons for this, right? You guys probably see like leaks of certain projects
On Reddit or something.
everywhere, yeah, on the interwebs. Maybe a lot of times for me, especially like with artists and albums and things like that, there's so much work that I've already done that has never seen the light of day.
And that's unfortunate, right?
It's very unfortunate. Yeah. And I mean, you guys, maybe you don't know, but like, say some artists like Prince or Michael Jackson passes away, and all of a sudden, like, there's a whole bunch of songs that are, released. And you're like, well, why is that? Well, there was so much material, that these guys are working every day that for one reason or another is not released, because again, this is a business. And when you release an album or a song, there has to be marketing, there has to be promo, there has to be music videos, there has to be tours. Like, there's all these things that, that have to happen. That's not just releasing, music. But I know for us as musicians, we're so eager to share these days.
Yeah.
So what are some benefits of, being able to do a NDA gig but not share the actual gig?
I think for me personally, it's something you can check off of your list. The emotional response that one can give is like, I was able to do that. And I was fortunate enough to partake in something, historic, whatever, big or small that might be. Either you met the artist that you've been really wanting to work with, you played with the music director that, you look up to, or the musicians that you wanted to be surrounded by. I think, from that angle, you can appreciate the moment for what it is. And also it forces you to be intentional about internalizing the feeling of it. What I mean by that is typically when you are doing an NDA gig or something related to that, you can't pull out your phone and get content. So therefore you have to be present, you have to be in the moment, and you have to try to remember as much as you can, because as soon as that moment's gone, it's gone. So I think that to me is important, being able to internalize, accept the moment for what it is, kind of be present. I think a lot of athletes do this, when they win their first championship, be it in baseball or NBA or NFL, it's like that first moment is always going to be special.
Yeah, being present. I mean, that's something that's so hard these days. We're always living through a screen or something. And actually, it took me back to a time, I've been with AJ Raphael now for, I don't know, close to 15 years or something. And, this was before Instagram, or right at the beginning of Instagram, right? And people were still kind of figuring out what Instagram was. But, we were traveling almost every single weekend, flying everywhere all around the world. And I got to experience like so many great things, so many great foods, so many great places, getting to meet people from those places. And the reality is, I sometimes feel out of touch because I have no photos or videos to show for it. Or if I do, they're all super pixely and, not the highest quality at all. But, those are memories that I, look back on now, and it enriches my life. And we had a special opportunity to kind of do a reunion 10-year tour recently, the last couple of years. And you helped me get a little DJI camera and all that. And I said, this time around, I want to make sure that I'm capturing everything just so I have something for me. And I was thinking of, social media and like, what can I post and things like that, and even like from photographers or videographers that were on site, I tried to grab all that footage just so I have something that I could, maybe post in the future or share somehow, but I think the important thing to take away from this is, whether you're in a high profile gig or not that requires some sort of, privacy, it's how you got there, right? It's like a benchmarker, because if it got that big that you have to sign something, then it's quite a goal. For some of your gigs that required this, how do you think you were able to land a gig of this caliber?
I think it goes back to, if you're a dedicated musician, you do it full time, you spend your whole life practicing, going over material, just being in the shed room and trying to nail a certain part or a song or a recording. You want it to be as best as possible. And, those are qualities and things that you develop as you mature within your own craft, And so I think I look at it from the perspective of like, okay, I've spent a lot of my life, practicing daily or learning new styles of music, and it's all led to this summation point. It's all led to this particular moment. What am I going to do with that? And I'm thankful that I took the time to dedicate to this instrument, and therefore it contributed to this moment. But also appreciating the fact that other people considered me for the opportunity. Because again, a lot of the times, when you get to land a big gig, everybody says, well, your hard work paid off and you deserve it. And like everything that you've done up until this point is why you got there. And that's true, but I think it also God's favor personally over your life. I don't deserve this. I'm not worthy of it, but God saw fit that I'd be a part of that. So I think it's an appreciation moment. I think it's a thankful moment for the fact that, some of the gigs that you and I get to do individually and collectively, is by the grace of God, you know?
Yeah, and really relationship matters. I mean,
Yeah.
again, like the advent of social media is just recently, right? I mean, maybe the last 2 decades or something like that. But if we look to the musicians that we looked up to, you know, like Abraham Laboriel, you know, Teddy Campbell, we had to find out somehow, some way who they were and how they were, you know, on certain records or certain gigs playing with some of our favorite artists. You know, and I remember for me it was the live gig, like going to a live show. You know, whenever we went to go see a big pop artist, you know, it was so hard to figure out who the musician was,
Yeah.
right? But you know, we'd find out eventually, you know, rest in peace, Aaron Spears was playing behind Usher and then Ariana Grande and this and that. And, you know, when he started a social media page, we all followed him, you know, but you think about it, how did they land those gigs? How did they get to where they are? How did, you know, they achieve certain things without sharing it on a public platform like social media? And, you know, it's about the relationship. And I think that's also another key thing about NDAs is you want to protect the brand, the person, or the company that hired you, because you don't want to breach that contract and potentially lose out on a relationship in the future.
Yeah.
Do you want to speak a little bit?
I think, you know, when it comes to protecting the people that have helped you get that gig or that opportunity, you know, we are, you know, a society that does focus heavily, including ourselves, on, again, getting the content. So it's almost as if, you know, we're using the content to validate ourselves and validate the fact that, yeah, it, like, I want to be able to say that I did this, so I'm going to put it on my bio, on my Instagram bio, and say I've worked with this or I did this event, you know. And so therefore, like, we look at events sometimes like that, especially high profile events. But again, you know, you're doing yourself a disservice sometimes by doing that for higher profile events, only because of the fact that, again, companies, brands, you know, these individuals, these artists that are looking to, you know, maintain a certain image, don't want anything less than you know, getting out. It's almost like Disney, you know, where they're going to protect themselves in every way they can when it comes to entertainment, making sure that it's an experience that they cultivate for the audience that's coming to visit the park. So in the same way, you know, these brands and artists are looking to protect themselves, and they typically will hire professionals in the industry that know how to do that. So they'll put together a team, you know, music director, you know, a creative director, a production manager, all these different titles of people that they can trust. And then because they can trust them, they know that they're going to bring on people that they can also trust.
We live in a world where literally you can go live to the world at just a click of a button and share anything. Like, we could share the behind the scenes of this podcast right now.
Yeah.
You know, you could share yourself on a tour bus and you don't know that maybe somebody in the back lounge is changing, right? But there's, you know, and it's great because we get to see a lot of behind the scenes. We get more access to musicians, to artists, all that kind of stuff, right? But there's also a danger to oversharing.
Yeah.
You know, and NDAs, again, are there to protect the brand, but you also have a brand to protect and to portray. You know, if we talk about the musician, for example, if you're trying to get on a lot of different gigs that's, you know, very diverse in its genre and stuff, but you only post one type of thing, that could actually be a danger or a deterrent to your brand.
Yeah.
And so you might be oversharing, you know, a certain amount of clips that's only specific to a certain brand or something. Can you talk a little bit about, you know, the dangers of oversharing within the context of your own brand?
I've seen a lot of drummers, you know, these days that like to share their practice videos, you know, so they'll put on reels and it'll be multiple takes of them trying to nail a part. Sometimes if it's a really fast chop, like we're talking 16 to 30 second note chop, and it sounds really cool because the click is at 160 BPM, it sounds pretty like, oh, dude, like, yeah, that's awesome. But when drummers share the same chop over and over, I'm thinking to myself, okay, if it's taking you this long to figure this chop out, how much longer would it take you to figure out a song? When you're at a rehearsal space with 5 other musicians, you don't have the luxury of saying, let me spend 15 minutes on this particular song. It's kind of like if you're not reading a chart, then it's off of retention. So if it's off of retention, you need to be able to pretty much nail it. I'd say 2 or 3 takes at most, because a lot of times at the higher level, they're tracking all of this. They have that, and so I think it's being mindful of that when you're sharing the content. Try to put out the best content as possible, unless you want your niche to be the drummer that posts his practice videos.
Also, again, with certain, gigs that require an NDA, brands are very protective of their own, brand, and so should you. But in terms of oversharing versus sharing the right amount, because you are also marketing certain things. Like if a brand asks you to be an ambassador, you're also marketing.
Yeah.
But they also lay out certain terms.
Sure.
And I know that you have a lot of experience with this, with sponsorships and things like that. How do you approach a relationship with a company when, say, a new company has a new product or something? You can't talk about it, but you got to create all this product for them and all this content for them. How do you share the excitement while still keeping their privacy?
IG they have this feature, everybody knows about it. It's called stories. You could, if you know that an upcoming release is due for next week or next month, you could start dropping little teasers, as we call them. We do this on our podcast show, actually, where we, if we have a guest coming up this Friday, we'll typically drop a teaser on Wednesday or Thursday of that week saying, hey, check out, tomorrow's episode, it's featuring this guest or whatever. We're giving you the heads up of who's going to be on there, but you have no idea what they're going to talk about. I think in the same way, when we're talking about a brand, it's good to have good lighting, good audio, make sure that your video looks good. Try to shoot in 4K if possible, if not 1080p. These are just basic principles I think that every, musician and content creator needs to know.
What happens after you finish one of these higher profile NDA gigs, or what is the feeling like?
It's very rewarding. It goes back to the preparation meets opportunity moment. For me, I'm thanking God. I'm just grateful. That's the best way I could put it. I'm just grateful to the Lord for granting me this opportunity, this chance to do something historic. Just the fact that you get the chance to do it, is very rewarding. And so to me, it's just being thankful.
Yeah, to go along with what you just said, you definitely do get that feeling. For me, it's not just a validation, but it's like, it is, but it's like I belong. I was able to do that job. I was able to do that gig really well. I remember a very specific thing that I did that was really high profile, and I was the first one to ever do that type of gig. And right after it, it was another 2-week kind of situation. Right after it, I went with Michelle, my wife, and we went to Bossa Nova. And we ate. If you guys know LA and Bossa Nova, that's the place to go after midnight. And I just sat there and I was kind of taking it all in. And, I had mixed feelings, right? Okay, was that it? But I'm really proud of myself. But okay, what's next? And I think for me, it kind of just solidified that, every gig that we get is really the blessing, right? The NDAs and the higher profile gigs kind of just, for me, cement that you're on the right track.
Yeah, that's good.
But we grew up in the church. We've been playing for church, for forever. We play with so many independent artists for free, for really cheap, or for just a meal and the hang. But I know that, both you and I, we always give our best, and the reality is, I think for you to secure more of these higher profile NDA gigs, it's you just keep approaching every single opportunity that you get with just giving it your best, and again, like these things, they come and go, right? And the reality is, ultimately they're benchmarkers of, I'm on the right path, I'm doing the right things, and you just keep striving for the ultimate goal, which you'll never reach. And so I think understanding the importance and enjoying the journey it should be one of your goals.
Yeah, and I think, we've touched on this topic as well. It's, there's basic things that you can do as a human being to attain some of these high profile events, or gigs, I should say, being a good person, remaining humble, being punctual, coming prepared. You do that on all the gigs. You do that everywhere that you go, so that when you do get a bigger opportunity, everything on that paper is checkmarked. It's like, I've done this, I've done this, I've done that. Therefore, this is why the opportunity has come. And you can, sometimes I've asked some of the people that have put me on this gig, why did you call me? Or why did you, I genuinely want to know. And one of the answers that I got was like, well, I knew that you could play drums. And number two, I knew that you could hang. I knew that it was a good vibe when you're around, So I think being able to maintain great character and trying your best to remain humbled, not coming in with the diva mentality or I like to call it the LA mentality, because some of the LA musicians, man, come in with like, I'm supposed to be here, and like, this is all about me, and how can this make me look better? And it's like, when it's a group effort, it's collectively, how can we all look great? How can we all represent this artist the best that we can?
And again, like, relationship matters, networking matters, but really, I think the most important thing to get through this music industry is friendships, and like real genuine friendship. I've known you for a long time now, and to be honest, when I was, checking out your gig, I was really proud of you, but I also know that, cool, he's going to come back. He's going to be the same Kevin. You know what I mean? Which, we try not to let these things kind of inflate our heads, right? So we get big head and this and that, because again, these gigs come and go. Yeah. I mean, you're feeling like you're $1 million one
on top
moment,
of the world, man.
On top of the world, literally. You may be flown first class. You may be in, 5-star hotels eating $150 steaks and things like that. Then the next day, you're literally looking for the next gig.
Yeah.
And so, it's really important to just maintain your character of who you are. And again, the people around you are going to speak to you and about you.
Yeah.
And again, it's not one of these things where you're just constantly looking for the next big gig. It's, we're all trying to get better at our craft, and at the same time, we're all trying to be the best person that we can be. And that's how you can land some of these higher NDA gigs.
There's a scripture that I'd like to end with today, and it's what does it profit a man to gain the whole world but lose his soul? You do the biggest gig in the world, wherever that might be, whoever that's with. Does that change who you are after you've done it? If the answer is yes, you're in no position to be there, honestly. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, we thank you so much for checking out Chad and Chong. If you have not already, we invite you to subscribe on YouTube. If you're following us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, make sure you rate this show 5 stars. And yeah, we'll see you on the next episode.